Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rash's World. Today we have Perry Atwal with us. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Thanks, Arash. How are you?
Very good. So the first question is actually kind of tough. It's going to get easier as we go along. How would you briefly describe yourself to our audience here? What would you say?
What would I say? Very briefly,
Yeah,
I would say that I'm an author, I'm a teacher, and I try to make the world a better place.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful. That actually, all of that applies to me as well. So, your book, which we want to talk about today, is called Wisdom for Life: Timeless Insights for Cultivating Joy and Growing Your World. I love the title. You're mentioning wisdom. Now, wisdom and information and knowledge is not the same thing.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Knowledge, information, it's growing at exponential levels. People can't keep up. There's just so much of it out there. How are you supposed to keep up? Wisdom to me, I think, stays the same. It stays the same. The same principles that worked 2000 years ago, they're still very evident today. Everything around us changes, the environment, the people, and so on. But I think the principles stay the same. And I think that's what's key. And so that's why what really drew me to the topic is what are these timeless things that keep on coming up again and again, and I think it's worth documenting.
I love the timeless parts of it. But so we were often told, I mean, years ago, knowledge is power.
Mhm.
Now that is outdated now.
I think so. I think so. I
Yeah.
think I'll give you an analogy to
Yes.
illustrate that. It used to be the case when you went to your doctor, you would say, "Oh, I've got a bit of a headache and a bit of a stomach ache. What could it be?" Now you go to your doctor and you say, "Well, I've got a bit of a headache and a bit of a stomach ache, and I think it could be this, 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 and this. I also think you should test for this," and so on. Why? It's because the knowledge is everywhere. It's easily accessible. It's easily accessible. And so, to that extent, I actually find the wisest people, and in fact, indeed, the best experts are not the people who try to blind you with knowledge. Okay,
Mhm.
those people I find that are maybe sometimes maybe a little bit insecure about what they know, and so they try to show you how smart they are.
Absolutely.
To me,
Yes.
the best experts are the ones who ask you a few pointed questions, and then they say, out of everything, I think it's this, and this is what you should do. To me, that's someone being very helpful, and that's someone being wise. But you can increase the knowledge all you want, you may not necessarily get to that point.
Yeah, and before we used to like revere people who are walking dictionaries and encyclopedias, and now it's like, well, we got this thing in our hand that like I can check things very quickly in seconds, and I might find out you're actually wrong, right? So we have knowledge at our disposal, at our fingertips, but what do we do with it? I think that's really important because there's too much knowledge out there. There's information overload, as you say. And so we have to really sift through that. And I think the skill is really to know what's important and what's not.
Yeah, what's important, what's not, what's going to make a difference? What do I really need to worry about? And
Mhm,
what's really just the noise? What's the noise?
mhm,
I
100%.
love the phrase, in three weeks' time, we're going to be laughing about this. Really, a lot of our problems happen when we think way too much in the future, or we think way too, or we worry about the future, or we stress about the past. In the present, there's very few problems. There's very few problems, and getting back to that being present makes a big difference.
Mhm. Now, as teachers, and I've been teaching for a long time too. Now, we can teach knowledge, but can we teach wisdom?
Ah, good question. Good question. I think we can do the building blocks. I think the
Good.
building
I
blocks.
like that.
I'm not so sure we can instantly make people around us wiser because I think it's almost a kind of co-creation. I don't think it's something that you could just tell someone and then that's it. They have that knowledge, so to speak, of what to do, but it's also how you're going to do it, the timing, the context, and so on. The way I'd like to equate this is from a leadership almost point of view, there's two parts to it. One is developing all the frames and the tools and the concepts and understanding them. But the other part is then knowing when to apply and knowing what to pick and which tools to pick and when. And that comes with a lot more experience, but also with that wisdom. It's much easier with that wisdom.
But it's something that we can also embody. So as somebody who has that, it kind of transmits it in a wordless way. So you just by the way you teach, perhaps that would be wisdom, whereas the knowledge is still the same. And so that combination can make a strong impact on students, for instance.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think if you model the kind of behavior
Model,
that
yes.
you're looking for, I think people become wiser when they are attracted to others who are wise, but they have a real reason as to why. They have a deeper sense of what's going
Mm,
on. They have an
mm,
admiration. There is something about this person that they respect, they admire, and because of that, they want to be perhaps a little bit more like them, or have the same kinds of results, or the same influence or presence. And that's why that will flick the switch in themselves. So if
mhm.
they see something that they like, or they see something that they admire or respect, then that in itself is great modeling and a path for them forward.
Yeah, and exactly. So we talk a lot about critical thinking, and like that's like a big thing, but I find it's taught very little. And
Yeah,
it's like you talk more about it than actually teaching how to do things, right? So it's really that is something that kind of implicit where we don't even mention it and you learn to think critically, right? So we don't really have to focus it. It's like a process more.
that's right. That's right. And I think for our own success, we need to be aware of just, which type of tool or which type of
Mm,
a field do you really want to focus on for a particular area? If it's a very technical issue, you're trying to fix something and so on, sure, look at the data, look at the knowledge and so on. But if it's more of a sensitive topic, if you're dealing with someone who's perhaps has gone through a lot of emotional pain and so, now you have to look at things very different and maybe a
mm.
little bit more holistically. The key is just not to always use the same technique for everyone, for everyone. I'll
Yes.
I'll give you an example. I've
Mhm.
had a boss in the past whereby everything was a family matter. Okay, let's just
Mhm.
bring everyone in the family. Let's have a big sit down and let's think about it and talk about it and so on.
Yeah.
Sometimes people just need a kick. They just need a kick. They just need to
Yeah.
get kicked into shape rather than having the big family kind of get together. And so it's a matter of developing all the skills, but then being able to have an awareness of when to use those different skills.
Always suspicious when you have somebody talks, we're a big family and so on. It's like, yeah, dysfunctional family, right?
You know what?
That's
I
been my
probably wouldn't have
experience.
chosen you as a family. But that's great. That's great. And
Yeah,
this is where, of course, friends are so important because friends are the
mhm.
family that you actually choose, that you actually
Exactly.
choose. The thing is
Exactly.
with I always think never judge people by their family because they didn't choose their
Thank you.
family. They didn't
Yes.
choose their family, but their friends, you can
Yeah.
tell a lot about someone
Yes.
by the friends they choose to keep.
Yes. And also you change. I mean, I've gone through a whole change now. It's like, okay, well, we don't jive anymore, or we're different, and then friendships end, and then you start new ones that reflect more who you are at that moment.
That's right. That's right. And I think the older you get, the more comfortable you are with those
Yes.
transitions. When
Yes.
you're younger, one transition, just going from high school to university, it's huge. It's life
Yeah.
changing and so
Yeah.
on. But over time, you get through a lot more of these cycles, and you see the same kinds of patterns, so you feel a little bit more content.
I've changed in terms of people pleasing at the beginning because you want to please your friends, but now it's like, no, I don't want to please you, and you should
Yeah,
accept me the way I am because I accept you the same way. So it changes, and the relationships change over time as we learn more in life.
absolutely, absolutely. We're all very dynamic. We're not the same people we were even
Exactly.
5 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, how do we cultivate joy? Because that's part of your title too, and in your book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think joy is something that can't really be searched for directly. Okay,
Hmm.
directly. I think it comes indirectly from doing the other things in your life. So I
Hmm.
think developing all these other parts, and this is really how my book is organized, the
Hmm.
different chapters. You've got health and wellness, which is a huge part of your life. You've got friends and family. You've got love and relationships. You've got travel and learning and so on. All of these parts are very important. And I believe if you improve or in any one of these, it has a knock-on effect to all the others. And I
Hmm.
think over time, the wisdom itself will develop. It will develop naturally by improving various areas of your life. And what the book does, it gives you some very tangible ways of doing so. So very specific exercises, reflection, and so on, which is going to take you to that level.
Yes, and I like how like it includes everything. Yeah, so it's like all encompassing. It's like not just focus on one part, but again all the bits. And these are kind of like Lego blocks that kind of fit together, and then the way you choose, you fit in your own way, and that can lead towards optimizing your life in many ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you look after your health, let's say, for
Hmm.
example, and you really improve your health over the next couple of months, that will have a knock-on effect. That will affect your
Yes.
relationships. You'll
Yes, it
be
does.
happier. You'll have more energy. You'll
Yeah.
want to do more for those around
Yeah.
you. It will have a knock-on effect in terms of your job and your
Yeah.
career and so on. You'll be more enthusiastic. You'll be more likely to be optimistic rather than pessimistic. It has a knock-on effect, and so everything affects everything. And
Yeah.
so taking that kind of view will help you in many ways.
Yeah, and so happiness is not something that's outside. It's really inside of you. And once you develop that, then it spreads out and then you feel much happier and others are happier too. But the problem is, I think, with also the pursuit of happiness, it's putting it out there and something that you're looking for, but it's actually really within.
Really within, absolutely. And the one way I like to look at this is that you can
Mhm.
think of how to get happy as really in two different parts. There's
Mhm.
pleasures and there's gratifications. And
Mhm.
so a pleasure is really indulging. Okay, you watch your
Mhm.
favorite movie, you have your
Mhm.
favorite food. These are all pleasures. The gratifications, the difference is that for a gratification, you actually have to work at it. Okay,
Mhm.
something like learning a new hobby, learning a language, doing something. There is something active there. And what the studies show us is that people who engage more time in gratifications as opposed to indulging are
Mhm.
infinitely happier. And this
Yes.
helps explain why there are some billionaires who are not happy. They're not happy because all they're
Yes.
doing is indulging all the time. And some of the happiest people you know are the people who have absolutely nothing, but they find a lot of meaning in what they do, in their work. They find that they feel that they're making a difference. And so the gratifications, the reason why they make you happy is because you achieve things. You achieve things. You prove to yourself you can do something. You prove you can learn something as an example. And because of that, that gives you that self-fulfillment and ultimately brings you joy because you feel like you're getting closer to your real potential.
Yeah, and meaning is such a key word because it's like it's not just about the money. Like you can make a lot of money, but if it's not meaningful to you, then you are wasting your time and your life.
Absolutely. You can't take any of it with you.
Exactly, exactly. So you also mentioned three self-reflective questions. Let's dive into that. What are they, and what would you like to say about them?
Yeah, I would think three big questions for really
Hmm.
reflecting on anything. Firstly, you have to be honest in
Hmm.
terms of reflecting on the past. You need a good
Yes,
starting point. You need a good
yes.
starting point. What really happened? What
Hmm.
really happened? Was it what I thought was going to happen? Was it as expected? What surprised me? What did people say? What did they do? You need to get into some details. I also think then thinking in the future, you want to get into some detail as to what you would want. Okay, what would you want in the future? How should things be different? If I was to do this again, what would I do? I think when we think about the future, the secret is to go into detail. It's all about the detail. So, for
Hmm.
example, if you want to be, for example, successful, that's one thing. But if you just say successful, it's too broad. What does it mean? How do you know when you're going to get
What does it
there?
mean to you, right?
Exactly
Specifically, yes.
does it mean to you? What is it?
Hmm.
To you, success might be very different from someone
Hmm.
else.
Hmm.
And it's important. I find to be clear in your own mind. What
Hmm.
would the target be? You don't
Hmm.
know how you're going to get there. And in fact, that's part of the joy of life is the
Yeah,
journey.
absolutely.
But
Yeah,
you need to have some clarity around your goals. How you
yeah,
get there, leave that to fate.
yeah,
But you need
yeah.
to know what you want. Unless because if you don't have a target, then how do you even know you've got there?
Yeah. Interestingly, as kids, we have a better idea. Yeah. So we have a dream. I want to become this. I want to do this. And it's like we kind of lose touch with that because of all the other, like the world around us, our parents and people like teachers and so on. So then we kind of get a bit lost or sidetracked,
We get distracted and we
distracted. Is
and
right.
we also get somewhat I don't know what maybe the best word maybe cynical. I
That's
think
right.
we come across different experiences, we meet different people, we see some of the lows as well as the highs. Typically as young kids we are sheltered from a lot of the lows or what might be
Mhm.
going on in the world around us, so we typically are very much more positive. As we grow older we lose a little bit of that positivity because we realize what goes on in the world and perhaps what's possible about what possibly could go bad. But I think there are certain people who give you a lot of energy. There are certain people, you spend half an hour with them and you feel fantastic. You feel
Yeah.
optimistic. You feel you can
Yes.
take on the world. There are
Yes.
other people, you spend half an hour with them, and you need to do something else. I mean, you need to have a drink or do something. You need to do something because they've just drained you. They just drained
Yeah.
you. And I think part of that is your self-awareness. Which people do what? I mean, there's some people you can't do anything about. Your very
Yeah.
immediate family,
Yeah.
obviously you can't. But your friends and your colleagues, and so
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
may have some choices. And if someone is making you feel that way, maybe you shouldn't be spending so much time with them.
I can tell you in that first group because I've
I
been
hope
already
so.
energized just
I,
talking to you. Yes. Yeah.
for some people, maybe not for everyone.
Yeah, and that's okay, and that's okay, right?
That's
The
right.
important ones,
Absolutely.
we'll know. So
Absolutely.
you got to writing this book from a different path because your background is you worked in major financial institutions like Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, and so on. So how did you get to this insight? Because it seems like not related to that in a way.
Yeah, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. I would say, when I was younger, when I went into investment banking, it was more so there was an aura around the
Hmm.
industry. If you wanted to be the best at whatever, that was the field to go into. I really didn't know too much about the area. I didn't really, know that this was my future, but I almost convinced myself. It's something that we call deep acting. I convinced myself this is my industry. This is where I want to be.
Okay.
These are my people.
Yeah.
I find myself laughing at jokes that I didn't even find funny, not even in the slightest. But just to fit in, I was one of those people. It was only after a few years there that I realized that, what am I doing? What am I really doing in my life? And as it
Yeah.
turned out, what it felt like was that I'm working very long hours, breaking my back, just to help a few wealthy people become even more wealthy, become
Yes.
even more
Yeah.
wealthy. And what kind of purpose is that? When I go and meet my maker, is that what I'm going to say? I'm very proud. I made a few
But
wealthy people.
even making them happy? No, you're not, because they look miserable. They say they're miserable. So what's the
I'm adding
point?
to their misery by giving them more
Yes, you
money.
are.
And so it's horrible.
Yeah,
And I thought, I don't want to do this. I, I
yeah,
I could do this for the rest of my life, but I don't see any meaning. I don't see any purpose. Is this really what I was put on this earth to
mhm,
do?
mhm,
And this is where I find teaching to be the complete opposite. Sometimes in investment banking, I would go in and I would spend all day trying to figure out an issue, and I couldn't figure it out. And on the way home, you'd think, what was the purpose of that day? Why did I even go in? Maybe
mhm,
in a positive way, I figured out a million ways how not to do it. But it was ultimately just feeling that, you're somewhat of a cog, a very small cog in a very large machinery. And if you leave, there's a million people who are willing to take your place. It just takes away some of that meaning in life. What I love about teaching is I can guarantee every day on my way home, I can think of times during the day where I saw people nodding, I saw some light bulbs go off in their head, and I
yes,
can honestly look at myself and think, I think I made a difference. I think I made a
yeah,
difference. You know what? Who knows where these ripples are going to end up? Who knows where my students are going to end up? But I think I made a difference. And
yeah,
that to me is magical. We always
yeah,
teach, you know what? Do what you enjoy. Do what you enjoy, and you never have to work a day in your life. I've got to revise that a little bit. I think as long as the main part of your job is what you really enjoy,
yeah,
then you're good. Then you're good. So
yeah,
to me, I love being in the classroom in front of people. That's about 80% of my job. I still don't like 20% of my job. Some of the admins, dealing with some of
yeah.
the
Oh
dodgy
yeah,
students and so on.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
still problems, but the
yeah,
majority of my life I like. And so that's what I encourage people around me, the people I mentor. Do what you enjoy. Just do what you enjoy. If you're good at it, sorry,
mhm,
if you really enjoy it, you will go over and above. You'll get
mhm.
really good at it. Don't worry about the money. The money will take care of itself. And there's a lot of other things that you can do to make money on the side, but do what you enjoy and you'll have a much more fulfilling life.
Yeah, and especially with teaching, I think with a lot of jobs, but especially that one, you need to be passionate about it. You need to be enthusiastic, and there's some who are not. And I remember those classes too, and it was like, okay, we're 10 minutes in, right? Whereas I
Yeah,
had students who came up, we had 5 hour class, and they said I didn't look at my watch even once. And I'm
that's it.
like, I did a good job, right? I made a
Yeah,
difference in that sense.
that's it. That's it. You
Yeah,
can tell. You can always tell when things are going
yeah,
bad. It just takes forever. You're looking at your watch all the time. Things
yeah,
just fly by otherwise. Just
yeah.
like this podcast is flying by because I'm really enjoying it.
Awesome. That's great. You also mentioned spirituality, and that's not something, again, I would have expected automatically from investment banker. So how does that play in?
That's a really good question. I think over time, what I realized is that there's a lot more to what's going on around us
Mhm,
that we can
mhm,
possibly imagine. And certain things happen in life which just work in your favor for absolutely no reason. And you just tend to think that there's something else going on. I also feel that you feel a lot more content, you feel a lot happier, you feel a lot grounded when you just feel that your purpose is a little bit clearer. And I think this is where spirituality helps. I don't consider myself very religious
Mhm.
because, I've studied a lot of the religions, I've read a lot
Same.
of the religious texts. And what strikes me more than anything is that they're far more similar than they are different. There's a lot of overlap. There's a lot of similarities. And but what I find is that, religion helps you to a certain point. If you don't know where to start, religion is great. It's got lots of signposts and lots of ways to help you become more spiritual. But once you get to a certain point, it doesn't necessarily help. Because you realize, especially when you think of the conflicts between the different religions, how does that work? How does that work? If we're all, going for singing from the same sort of song sheet, it doesn't seem to add up. And so, I think the spirituality is what really takes you to very, very different levels. The people who I've seen who are the real outstanding stars in any field, they have way more than just that knowledge and ability within that area. They have
Mhm.
they have this presence. They have this kind of calmness about them. They have this contentness that all is well in the world and they know where their place is and what is happening, which I think is quite magical. And I think it's very attractive because many people are lost and they're looking for guides. They're looking for ways out. And I think spirituality can help you in that respect.
Yeah, and that's the problem with religion because it's like it's suffering and you have to suffer and for the next life. And then even like in Buddhism, it's like life is suffering. And like, no, that's like we already have enough suffering. Please don't add to it. And the other thing is if you look at the figures, I mean, the Buddha is always laughing, right? And
Yeah.
so there's joy there. Jesus turned water into wine in a wedding. He's a prankster, right? I mean, there is a lot of good, happy stuff there. And any religion that says talks about suffering, I'm walk out.
It's that, yeah. And you know what? On
Not
that
for
note,
me.
not for you. Absolutely. On that note, with suffering, what I find with suffering, the key to not have to do all the suffering is just a lot of empathy. It's a lot of
Hmm.
empathy. If you can truly feel like someone else is feeling when they're going through whatever, I
Hmm.
don't think you have to go through it yourself because I think you learn
Hmm.
the lesson.
Hmm. And also, I mean, like, I mean, I'm talking about suffering, but when you do suffer, and there are things that you don't look for it, but life is there are lots of things that is suffering in our lives. To really go through those experiences and not to shun them, not to run away, not to evade them, because once you do that, then you can process it and you can actually reset yourself. You can actually grow from it. And I think without suffering, there is no growth, I think, in my experience. And
That,
those are the biggest moments of my life. So I'm not running away from it, but I'm also not adding to it
yes.
intentionally. Yes.
That's great. That's a great way of putting it. You're not
Yeah.
adding to it. You
Yeah.
have to embrace it. You have to embrace it to a degree. What
Mhm.
what I find is that the way I look at it, the way I frame
Mhm.
things is that, things will happen for a reason. They will happen for
Mhm.
a reason. So anything bad that
Mhm.
happens, anything negative, it's there to teach you a lesson. At the
Mhm.
time, it may be difficult because whatever you have to do to get over that issue.
Yeah.
But in the
Yeah.
long term, you're always going to benefit. Every cloud has that silver lining. It's certainly just from what you learn, maybe to avoid that situation again or to approach situations like that again differently in the future. It's all there for the lessons. Whether or not we learn from the lessons
Yeah.
is
That is
another
another
point.
thing. Yes.
And sometimes we get the same lessons all our life and we just
Yeah,
don't listen.
it's repeated. I've had that many, many times. Like, why is this happening? Yeah, until
Yeah,
I kind of break through, break the cycle, the karma, if you like. Yeah.
the comment, and on the same point, on a more positive note as well, I would say that there's been at least three times in my life where I could have become a teacher, where I was so interested in becoming a teacher and
Yeah.
I was doing various things which were going towards teaching. But I never did it because I always
Uh-huh.
assumed, you know what, it's not going to give me the kind of finances that I wanted to
Yeah.
do the other
Yeah.
things I wanted in life and so on. So I never really thought of it seriously. But it was almost as if someone kept on knocking on my door and they just
Yes.
said, "Look,
Yes.
this is for you. This is for you. When are you going to get it?" And now, I finally became a teacher, and now I've been doing this now for 20 years, and I absolutely love it. But it was almost okay. Well, why didn't you do it before? I gave you the signs, but you just you
But
don't
you
listen.
do it when you're ready for it. So it's also
That's
like
right.
not to hit you over the head. It's like beat you over it. It's just like, yeah, that's like, okay, I wasn't ready at the time. Now I am.
That's
And
right.
there's actually a quote I want to mention that kind of falls into that I very much like. We cannot change the cards we are dealt, just how we play the hand. Randy Pausch. Let's
Yes.
talk about that. I love it.
Yeah, it's a great quote. I think, there's certain things in life you can control and there's
Mhm.
certain things you can't. And, the way you're born, where you're born, who you're born to, your family, your immediate
Mhm.
family,
Mhm.
initially and so on, you have no choices. Okay. You have no choice. If you're born with a disability, if you're born in any kind of poverty or any kind of difficult situation, you can't really, that is what it is. But
Mhm.
there are there's ways in terms of how you can frame it to yourself. There's
Yeah.
ways in terms of how you deal with it. There are reasons why some people take any kind of adversity very positively, and they turn out even better, and they
Mhm.
end up doing great things for other people and so on because they're inspired by it. There's other people who go the other way, and it's important to understand that kind of spectrum and just to think why, just why. And I think those people who do go in a much more positive way, they just find that deeper meaning. They find that deeper cause, and that deeper cause it then manifests in everything that you do. It
Yeah.
gives you the
Yeah.
energy, it gives you the motivation, it makes you meet the right people.
Yeah, and for me, there's only positivity. I mean, there cannot be negativity, and if you negativity, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah,
Because yes, I mean, whatever the dire circumstance, I believe yes, that's true. But what are you going to do with it? How are we going to
yes,
get out of that, right? So there's always a positive outlook on pretty much anything. I mean, there's horrible things that happen. We don't know the answer to that, and that's okay. We're not supposed to get certain answers. I think we're like incapable of understanding certain things. But again, as you say, there is a reason there, even if we don't see it or understand it.
that's right. And this is where perspective is very
Mm.
important. This is why it's important, for example, to spend some time with people who are less fortunate, who don't have the same
Yes.
opportunities and so on,
Yes.
because it just makes you feel different and it makes you feel very very different for the life that you have. You feel much
Mhm.
more grateful. You have a lot more
Mhm.
gratitude. You feel a lot more blessed, as opposed to if you hang around all the time with people who are much more successful, much wealthier, or much, you're going to feel terrible. Why? Because it just seems perspective, even though it's you're not considering the bigger picture, but it's just the people that you are spending time with just make you feel that way because you'll feel a bit inferior. So I think that perspective is really key.
And that's one final point I want to make too about the world of consumption, right? That we have, or social media of seeing things that we don't have. And something I think that's troubling a lot of people, both younger and also older generations too, is fear of missing out, FOMO. And so
Absolutely.
so that's the idea. And it's always like whatever you choose, there could be something better out there, but you're never happy with what you have.
Yeah, you never get contentness. You never
You
get
never
contentness.
get
Look,
contentness.
you
Yes.
make a lot of money, you move into a very nice house. Guess what? You start meeting people who've got swimming pools. Okay, you
Yeah.
start hanging around with them, and then guess what? One person's got a helicopter.
Yeah.
You start hanging around with them, you get a helicopter, and now you hang around with people who've got a private jet. It never ends. It never
Yes.
ends. The
Yes.
problem with the rat race is that, even if you win, you're still a rat. Okay, you're still a rat.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Good
I
point.
I think it's
Good point.
there's a famous saying where it says, the day we win is the day we stop running the race. And you just, you think about what you really want to achieve, but you stop looking outside for for that measure of success. It's fine to look outside and to see what other people are doing and to get some kind of perspective and so on, but you don't use that as your measure because if you were going through exactly, or if you were in the shoes of someone else, you'd probably do exactly the same thing and get the same results if you had the same background, the same knowledge, the same experience, and so on. So it's very hard to compare with anyone else because everyone's so different.
Hmm. And I can see that all these theories and ideas that you have, you're applying them. I think application is so important. And I know a lot of people who have these great theories, but I say like, no, you actually not doing it. You just have a theoretical knowledge of it, but
Yes,
combining that, and that shows when you actually applying it to your life too.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's what I really wanted to do with my book is that to make
Mhm.
it very practical. Make it
Yes.
practical. How do you know? How do you know you're wiser today than you were, say, a month ago? Well, there's a lot of exercise in this book which are going to get you there.
Right. Awesome. Thank you so much for your wisdom. So again, your book, your Perry Atwal, I have you as an author, lecturer, as well as a soccer fan.
Yes,
Yes.
absolutely, absolutely. Not so happy right now. I was actually in
Right.
Atlanta for the England-Argentina game, and yes, it was pretty devastating, pretty
Oh yeah.
devastating. But
Oh,
it's
you
okay.
yes.
4 more years, 4 more years. There we go.
Awesome. Awesome. Right. All my teams are out too. I had
Oh,
like good ones, but then I don't know. I'm just not lucky. But
yeah, there we go.
also again, your book here that we talked about, Wisdom for Life, Timeless Insights for Cultivating Joy and Growing Your World. And such a joy talking to you. Thank you so much for being on Rash's World.
Oh, beautiful. It's been all my pleasure, Arash. Thank you.